Hello everyone, welcome to the second lecture for Lab 2. We left the discussion here. We essentially talked about the playmaker and I talked about some of the things you can do for the lab to gain more points or to reduce your workload in general. But today, the main focus is going to be on learning the playmaker software. I haven't installed the playmaker software on my own computer, and you can actually do that as well. Just go to the Explain website. Explain website. You can try the pre-demo and download it here. You can install it on your own computer. It usually is installed on the main directory here, unless you change the directory address. When you go to the Explain software, you can see the three softwares we mentioned: Airfoil Maker, which is the two-dimensional airfoil analysis and design software. Then the Playmaker, which is a aircraft design, which is an aircraft design software. And then we have the Explain 11, which is our main software. Okay, but you have to be familiar with the layout of this folder. Okay, and why is that? Because essentially every modification you do, you have to store here. The first folder is called the aircraft, which essentially gives you all the aircrafts you have in the software. And in case you ended up installing software on a computer and you want to use a specific aircraft that's not there, there are a lot of people who design these aircraft using playmakers, and you can just copy and paste them here in the aircraft. So what we are mainly focused on is the laminar research part, and these are the main aircraft you can have access to in the laminar research part. But if you were curious, you can go to you can fly even on a space shuttle X-15 aircraft. I'm pretty sure you have heard about this. But yeah, laminar aircraft. And the aircraft we want to focus on is from the Cessna family. So as you can see, the airfoil that are used in the Cessna family of aircraft are stored here. In the airfoil part, we have the Clark airfoil, we have the NACAS, a set of NACAS, and we have one of the most famous and widely used NACAS 2412 in the airfoil that is being used by the Cessna family of aircraft. We have the schematics of the cockpit. We have the liveries that we talked about, the paint job of the aircraft, essentially objects, plugins, and sounds of the aircraft. So essentially you can add everything you want to add to an aircraft. And then this is the ACF file, the main ACF file I mentioned, that is used for the most basic Cessna aircraft that we have in this software. We can use in this software, which is called Cessna 172 SP. We also have another one of Cessna family of aircraft, Cessna 172 G1000, and we also have the Cessna 172 seaplane. These ACF files are the most important files of these design parameters, but the cockpit design, so what I've done, well, we have three different aircrafts here. And there's also, for most of the aircrafts, the Explain manufacturers, the creators, have included the manual for each aircraft. Like for the G1000, you have the manual that talks about the real aircraft. And these are the real, so if you end up sitting in a G1000 aircraft, this is what you will definitely see inside the aircraft. Okay. Pilot operating manual for the Cessna 172. This is a very interesting manual. If you were interested, you can always go back and read. So your goal in the lab 1 is to essentially fly this aircraft, right? So what I'm going to do is, this is a demonstration we will go over in the lab in more detail. So I'm just going to give you a very small demonstration on what we want to do. Just open the software. I have the demo version at my home. You don't need to use the demo version. And then you choose the Cessna Skyhawk, okay, or any of the Cessna family. You start a flight. In the lab, your TA is going to teach you how to essentially fly this aircraft, how to use the different sticks. We have the sticks, we have the anything you need. A pilot needs to fly an aircraft in the lab. So you will end up using those. But here I'm going to just put it on the autopilot, and I'm going to focus more on how to export the data, what data I will need you to export, and I will talk about that bonus project, if you will, that I asked you to do on the side, if you want to, of course. Okay, so I'm not sure if you are what you're hearing here. I'm just gonna try to. I don't know if you are hearing me there, but I'm just gonna reduce the sound a little bit, all of it, and okay. So hopefully you are hearing me clear now. You get. Okay, this is the menu we want to work on. I'm just gonna say AI fly my aircraft.
2 Sierra Papa cleared IFR2 Victoria International as filed maintained 8,000 squawk 47.
Okay, for some reason.
Cleared IFR2 Victoria International as filed maintained 8,000.
I just wanted to fly the aircraft. Okay, I'm gonna go over. For whatever reason, it doesn't fly the aircraft. I'm gonna go over the thing that I wanted to go over. You will learn to fly the aircraft. So you come here. I'm sorry, I keep doing this. You come here. This is your menu button essentially, and you go to the data output. We want to output lift and drag coefficient, right? So CL. Let's see if we have the CL here. Lift. Yeah. So wing lift, we can also have the stabilizer field. If you check this part, it will show the lift wing lift to you in the cockpit. If you check this, it will graph the window. If you check this, it will write it in a text part that I'm going to show you later on. And this one is the bonus part that will send it over to network, right? So for that case, you just have to put the IP address of the machine you want to send it to. You don't need to change the ports. But we are not going to do that here. That's just part of the bonus part. Okay. You can see the lift here. The graphs didn't show up, but you will definitely see the graphs when you are working with the aircraft. Let me see. So for some reason it doesn't really fly the aircraft. So it was just working before, but that is alright. I'm just going to quickly explain now, and I'm going to show you where the data is logged. This is your data. So you have 3 wings. The lift coefficient for all of those wings are lifted here on the Cessna 172 Skyhawk, and that's the lift coefficient every couple of seconds, I think, right? The next thing you need to do is to do the same thing for the angle of attack, drag coefficient, lift to drag ratio, and then you will be able to plot your CL versus alpha. But you just have to keep in mind that the CL versus alpha you get from here, this will give you a time evolution of lift coefficient. So essentially, you have to play with the massage data a little bit to get the CL versus alpha. You have the CL versus time here, and alpha versus time. You just have to play with it. to get the CL versus alpha. The same is true for CL versus the CD versus alpha and the lift coefficient. Right? So if you have the data here, and that's it. That's what you want to do for the lab 1. You just have to be able to fly and land the aircraft. What I want you to do for the lab report is to identify the stall conditions, identify the maximum lift coefficient, and the maximum lift to drag ratio that you're going to get in your flight. But let's get to the lab 2, which is going to be in 2 weeks. It's going to be on September 8 here. Okay, let's get to lab 2. For lab 2, as I said, we are going to modify a Cessna 172. So essentially what you do, let me delete this folder. What you do is you go to the laminar research, you find the Cessna folder. Just make sure to follow this completely, because some of your classmates actually from last year didn't follow this completely and they have changed the original Cessna a little bit. We don't want that to happen. So you're gonna name the folder after yourself. I'm just gonna name it Mustafa's Aircrafts and copy my Cessna here. So let's go back to explain now. Let's open the explain. And you will see that so we have essentially 2 of each Cessna. We had that before, mainly because we also had Mustafa. I had already copied that, the Cessna over there. But if you go to the customize button, you see that the flight path is through the my aircraft folder. So whatever modifications I do on this Cessna is gonna be belonging to, it's gonna go through that path. So it doesn't gonna change the original. So let's quickly explain again. Let's open the PlaneMaker. This is what you're gonna see. I'm gonna explain the PlaneMaker a little bit. This is essentially fuselage, if you will, cylindrical fuselage. If you play with the arrows on your keyboard, you call them arrows, I don't know, let's call them arrows, like the up, down, and left and right. It works in the opposite direction. So if you press the up key, it will go down, the fuselage. If you press the down key, it will go up, and the same is true for the right and left button. If you want to rotate it, you have to use the WASD buttons on your keyboard. It will rotate the fuselage your design, and this is a very plain design. So we're gonna play with this a little bit to become a little familiar, and then we'll go to the modification of the Cessna aircraft. So we come here. The first part, if you were to design the aircraft from the beginning, you should come here. This is the panel the pilot sees when sitting inside the aircraft. Okay, you can do a lot of, you can add flux, you can add buttons, but this is just like niceties, not the real thing, right? I mean, if you add flow meters, if you add basic T, everything, they will work when you are flying the aircraft. They will show you the real altitude and everything else, and the velocity and everything else. But in order to fly your plane in this explain software, you don't need to add them. Okay. The next part of this standard is the engine specs. You can see a lot of specs here: the critical altitude of the engine, the horsepower, the throttling level available, and so on and so forth. A lot of things here. You can play with all of those things, and you can go over them and see what they are there. You can actually add a second engine if you will. Let's just have to add this. It will ask you where to put that second engine. You just have to make sure that you're putting it on the correct position. You can add propellers, you can add jet engines. Actually, you can add everything you want to add as far as the power plant of the aircraft goes. Okay, and we can also add wings, right? But before adding wings, let's go to the fuselage. This part is the fuselage part that controls the fuselage for you, right? Let's go to the fuselage. The fuselage for the design of fuselage is essentially a combination of these. Here we have 9, but you can always add them, or you can remove them. You can make it 9 fuselages. Essentially, it's 9 cuts of 9 cylindrical, not 9 circles, if you will, that are connected to each other. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and it will look like this. When you just have that, and this is the preset. So whenever you open the Flame Maker, you will see something like this. But if you want to change a little bit, you can just click here. As you can see, all of the points gather together at the front, and I want to do the same here. Gather together all of the points at the back. You can change the position here, move it upward, move it downward, or move the points away from each other. You can play with a lot of things here, which is not a part of the lab, but if you were to do that, the second bonus thing we discussed, you have to come here, you have to learn this. But yeah, you have to learn it on your own. So those modifications actually may change the fuselage a little bit. So we have a closed fuselage. This is an improvement. This is a very basic improvement to the aircraft. Then you come to the wings. Let's say you want to add. This is the thing you can see. You can add wings to it, different wings. But in order to add a wing, what you want to do is you want to give it a tip cord first. And let's add a wing with 1 feet. Let's do 1 feet. It should come out here. I don't want to go to 1. So we have to add a root cord, and we also have to add a lead to the wing. So as you can see here, let me increase the lead a bit. As you can see here, your wing is added here at the front. You probably want to move your wing, so you just have to change its positioning with respect to the reference points. And this is how you change the positioning in the longitudinal direction. Very simple. This is how you change the positioning in the latitudinal direction. Keep in mind that, so this is very handy when you want to add 2 wings, right? On top of it, 2 different sections of a wing. You can just add a second wing and change the latitudinal position, right? And we also can move it upwards and downwards. We can change the angle. We can add incidence to it. We can add ailerons. You can add a lot of things, whatever you want to add. And they will all show up here. Okay. The root cord and tip cord can be different, of course. If you can create a rectangular wing, very simple rectangular wing, if you have the same root cord and tip cord. And yeah, this is very basic. I just want to make sure that you guys know what I'm talking about. As you can see, I'm 100% sure that this can't fly. But if you were to design the airplane yourself, this is the path you want to go for. But what we want to do in the lab is to change the conditions of change this Cessna 172. So let me go back again. You go to Files, you go to Open. You don't need to save this. It will show up at the Explain 11 folder, Aircraft, and Cessna 172. We want to choose the one Cessna 172. Make sure you go through your own folder that you have created with your own name, and then we open the aircraft. So when you open the aircraft, you're going to see a complete Cessna. Keep in mind that the liveries and everything else is already added here. Those bitmap files, whatever, those were all they all contribute to you seeing this complete Cessna, right? And they will also prevent you from seeing the changes that you may want to have. For example, let's say you want to change the positioning of the wings. Okay, let's go to the wing and let's change the long arm by 1 feet. So it is changing here, but we are not seeing it on the panel on the left, so you don't see the changes. Whenever you're dealing with a modified Cessna, you have to be mindful of that. Okay, so you change whatever you want to change here. We will go in more detail in the lab about this. So you and we are there, me and your team, we are there. You can ask any questions you may have. And I will also keep in mind that I will also upload 2 very complete playlists on how to design an aircraft in Playmaker from scratch. Right, one of them is like 35 sessions of like 20-30 minute sessions. So if you want to learn this software completely, you should be able to follow that. But for the purpose of this course, you only need to learn how to modify this numbers here. You can change the sweep angle, you can change the dihedral angle, you can move the wings, but you are not going to see the changes on your aircraft. So if you didn't see any changes, don't be scared. Don't get scared. It is changing, but you don't see it because of all of the carryovers of previous design that we just copied. Okay. And you can change anything you want to change. Essentially, you can add a landing gear. You can change the if you were to design your aircraft from scratch, this part is actually very important. You'll have to make sure that the center of gravity is correctly placed. And I encourage you to change the center of gravity, to move the center of gravity, and see what's going to happen to your aircraft. That's actually a very good visualization of the importance of center of gravity in designing an aircraft. Okay. Then you go back, you save as. I'm just gonna save this as Mustafa's Cessna, but the folder is giving you right here. You just have to make sure that you don't copy, you don't save this in the original explain folder. You save it in your own folder. Okay. So I'm just gonna save the aircraft, and that's it. Let's close this software. Did I close it? Yeah. And open the explain software again. Use demo. I haven't changed anything. I just saved it as a new software, as you can see. And this is going to be your new Cessna Skyhawk. The reason behind this question mark is because we didn't add any bitmaps and details that we already added to the software. If you wanted to do that, you essentially just have to go and change the names of the files that are there. That one of the files is called the bitmap. You just have to change the name of the file to the Mustafa's Cessna 172. Let's see if we can fly this plane. I'm sorry, it's taking a little bit to load up. Yeah, okay, so that's it. We already have all the monitors here, and we have this data saving to data.text, that txt. Let's actually add some outputs here. Let's add the angle of attack. Okay, we want to graph the angle of attack. We want to save it to the data.disk, and we want to show it in cockpit. Okay, and let's see if the AI flies our aircraft this time. No, it doesn't. Oh no. Okay, sorry. That's good. You can see the communication with the AI, which is not letting us see the flight parameters for some reason. Let's see if I can remove that. That's done. Okay. You can see changes in angle of attack, alpha. This is the main angle of attack that you are looking for. You have the lift on being 1. And being 2. All the things. And I'm just going to wait for it to take off. And let's see what happens. So all of the things that you see here, you essentially have to do yourself in the... It doesn't like to take off for some reason. You are going to do yourself in the lab. It's a pretty fun lab. I like the lab myself, and if you pay attention, you will be able to learn a lot of material in this lab. I just want to wait for it to take off. Wow, it is going on the tarmac now. Unbelievable. Okay. Look at the basic T here. So this is basic T, as I said, is an old thing. So this essentially you are only going to see it on the Cessna Skyhawk and the other two that are very important ones as well. Okay, we can see the elevation here. You can see the velocity or the speed of the aircraft. Okay, takeoff. I assume the elevators were engaged, and the vertical speed, the total speed, you see the elevation, your altitude is increasing, and that's it. So we have some data as far as the output goes, and let's go back and check the data. Okay, that. Okay, so for at the middle of the thing, I added the angle of attack. That's why you see it is added at the middle. You can actually change the sample rate, so you will end up with having a smaller data set, which is, I think, it's a very reasonable and good assumption. You can see the angle of attack is changing, has changed from 0, and it is changing regularly, and your lift is also changing. Okay. So this is something that you need to do in the lab. You need to go over and essentially compare for the modified and the unmodified one. So hopefully this gave you a good overview of the Explain software, the Playmaker. We will try to do this again in the lab. Your TA will do there. I will also be there. We can talk, and you can ask any questions you may have. So that's going to be the lecture 2 for lab 2 of the class, the final lecture for the lab 2 of the class. The next lecture that I'm going to upload is going to be related to lab 3, which is the airfoil analysis and airfoil design. See you guys in the lab.